Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Hope you guys are doing well and your week is off to a great start. This is going to be my video on the Mars ingress into the sign of Capricorn. If you guys like my content and you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, give me a thumbs up, drop me a comment, and don't forget to share. Sharing is caring. Any interaction with the videos on my channel helps the channel grow and get these videos out to other astrology lovers. I appreciate it. I'm titling this video, Taking Care of Business. Yes, I'm sure the song is now playing in your head. I think that wasn't that the old Home Depot commercials? Like that was like their song that they had. I don't know. But I think this is like such an appropriate title for this particular ingress. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We are going to be seeing from January 4th, 2024, so getting used to saying that, January 4th, 2024, through February 13th, 2024, Mars will be in the sign of Capricorn. So if you happen to be an Aries or Scorpio rising, your chart ruler is on the move. This is important. Equally for Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, or personal planets, you will be under a Mars transit. But to be honest with you, for everybody, I think this is a very, very, very positive time. It's giving us all the opportunity and the willingness, the energy to get down to business and take care of some stuff. And it's also very important as well because the North Node in Aries is ruled by Mars. So wherever Mars goes, it is bringing some of these lessons. Today, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the profile of Mars and Capricorn, how this might manifest out in the world, and then I'll take you through each and every one of the 12 rising signs. So stay tuned for that. We will definitely be touching on that. But in astrology, Mars, right? Mars is a planet that deals with energy and ambition and drive and desire. It's about being assertive, and it has this natural kind of masculine energy. Mars is moving through the 10th sign of the zodiac, Capricorn, and it will be here for about 6 weeks long. It kind of visits about every 2 years or so because it takes about that long for a Mars transit to, kind of come back into any given sign. And Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. It's ruled by Saturn. So we're going to see this beautiful blending of Saturn's kind of commitment-oriented, well-timed, long-term, ambitious goals, and Mars's action and desire for forward motion. So they're going to blend together, and Mars is exalted in this sign. So if you guys saw my video that I did on Sunday, I talk about how this is one of the more kind of important periods, I think, during the North Node in Aries years, 2023 to 2025. And wherever Mars goes is kind of painting a picture about how it is helping us get into alignment with that North Node in Aries. Now, by sign, Capricorn squares Aries, so we will feel at some point this month, both because of the squares to the nodes and also the activation point of that new moon in Capricorn, that there is almost kind of getting pushed into something, doing something, right? And I think the key here is really being courageous, okay? And being brave in the midst of some challenging things that we're going to have to do to become more independent, more self-reliant. Now, when I think about Capricorn, the one keyword that comes up for me, and I think what's so admirable about 10th house placements, Capricorn placements, but in particular, when I think of Mars and Capricorn, I think of ambition and drive that they have. So when we combine the energy of Mars and Capricorn, with this Saturn-ruled sign, basically it gives us an opportunity to be more ambitious, to be more goal-oriented. People who natally have this placement have a strong drive to achieve their ambitions and are willing to work hard persistently to climb the ladder of success, right? We think of Capricorn being the 10th house. It is associated with the MC, the highest kind of point in the zodiac wheel. And this is where the goat has scaled the mountain all the way to the top. And in order to get there, they have to be pretty strategic, right? They have to know where to walk and when to be able to get to that higher vantage point. For me, I think this takes discipline, and that's something sometimes that Mars lacks because Mars wants to go, go, go. But when it's in this particular sign, it's known for a disciplined and structured approach. Mars and Capricorn can exhibit these qualities in its actions, And people who have this natally are pretty disciplined, focused, and capable of enduring challenges to reach their objective. Now, obviously, this takes strategic planning, like I said, and that can be physically, because Mars is a physical planet, but also in a sense of your actions and thinking ahead, carefully planning your actions. I don't really feel like Mars in Capricorn is very impulsive. We may see some changes to how we do things when Mars trines Uranus, but for the most part, I think it's pretty well aspected. And I think that people who have this natally prefer to assess situations and only take calculated risks and really think out their decisions before they come up with any sense of action plan. Now, this requires patience and persistence, which Capricorn energies can really exude. They have a lot of endurance. They can persist through setbacks and through delays. Capricorn is a sign that understands the value of long-term goals and are willing to invest time and effort to see their plans come to fruition. That's because Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is the keeper of time. So we would think of older age or, career advancement or elders or, those who kind of lead groups of people. That's all Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is in Pisces. So this can be about, I think, being a leader even when nobody is looking. This is doing the right thing, because Pisces is associated with Jupiter, the morally correct thing, kind of thinking along, higher morals and like making decisions and leading when nobody is looking behind the scenes. This might mean that we're also using something about our faith, our intuition. Maybe we are meditating more, we're reflecting more, we're practicing some sense of faith or religion to be able to kind of better align with our goals. I could definitely see a lot of people who are going to be turning to parents and bosses and elders and asking them for some sense of advice or direction. I could also see people turning to faith and scripture, because Saturn is in the sign of Pisces. People who are learning to follow the advice of their faith or their belief system to better help them in achieving their goals, their desires, and also leading other people. I think also about organizational skills, because, Mars and Capricorn, from what I've experienced, tend to be organized, and there is like a method to how they approach their tasks. So they really appreciate structure and order, and it helps them manage responsibilities effectively. Whether that's having a sense of like timelines or schedules or goals that they're meeting at a specific time, they tend to really show up and kind of produce what needs to be produced. So there is some sense of having organization when it comes to what they are actually actively working on or achieving. I do feel like something that does come up a lot with Saturn placements or Capricorn in general can definitely be a sense of being a little bit more reserved. I always affectionately refer to Capricorn placements as being a little frosty, because Capricorn is known for its reserved nature, and it's reflected in how Mars expresses their emotions in this transit. So you may not see that people are as openly demonstrative of their emotions, but they can be deeply committed to their goals, to their relationships during this time. Mars is a sign or a planet, that deals with passion, and it also deals with sex. So moving into the sign of Capricorn, there can be this sense of, okay, what am I hoping to achieve in this relationship? What are my desires? How do I obtain it? And there can be this sense of really kind of taming that impulsiveness or that willingness to be a little bit more cutthroat, and really taking a much more kind of conservative or practical or traditional approach to things. So we may feel like people are kind of going at things a little bit more old school during this particular transit. They definitely have a concern for reputation, because they're kind of in the spotlight being associated with the top part of the zodiac. So they place a high value on social status and reputation. And Mars in Capricorn individuals tend to be very conscious of how their actions impact their public image as they strive to maintain a respectable and responsible image. So there can be this sense of being like, and are the actions that I'm taking really lining up with, how I want people to perceive me? Am I living a life of example? Am I out there doing the work that I'm also preaching? And this is interesting because we have so many placements that are going to be moving through Capricorn. So as all of these planets are moving through Capricorn, they're eventually going to come into a square with placements in Aries, like Chiron, which will bring up, self wounds, the North Node, which represents the direction in which we are going. I have to tell you guys, it's such an important time to be learning about tradition, to be learning about our history. Capricorn is a sign that deals with history. To be connecting with elders, to be talking to your grandparents, or if you're lucky enough to know your great-grandparents, or historians or veterans. I think of people who have seen some shit, right, that can really kind of talk about what's happened in the past and help explain to us what's taken place in the past, so that way we have the opportunity to learn, because history has a tendency to repeat itself. That's what I really love about history and astrology. That's why sometimes I'll go and dig back to previous transits, because we'll see some similar things kind of manifest. And so I think about how it's going to be so important to have leaders and people in positions that can really talk about where we've come from, so we can better kind of plan where we're going. Kind of hard when you have Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn, in the sign of Pisces, where there is almost this organized takedown of leadership, or a dissolving of leadership, a lack of leadership, and also a want or a need to dissolve structures. We think of things like historical monuments and things that have been removed from textbooks. Without getting too political or talking about specific topics, I understand wholeheartedly where this comes from, especially on the backs of what's been a really chaotic Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, a lot of cultural divide, racial divide, a lot of religious divide as a result of these squares. But something that's really important to really think about is that if we are dissolving history, right? If we're removing monuments, if we are removing things from textbooks, if we are altering history, how do we learn from those things? That's something that you really want to think about, because no matter how ugly history has been, okay, and you can reference world wars, you can reference issues during the civil rights movement, we can talk about things revolving around the foundation of the United States and, the issues that we had, obviously, with slavery. But if we remove these things, as an American, I'm saying this, from our history, how are we going to learn? How are we going to keep from repeating the past? There's something very distinctly off about that, and not just off-putting, but off in a sense where you have to kind of question, why is this happening? And if we are moving in a direction where we're not listening to elders and we're not paying attention to history, then we're losing touch with where we've been. People are going to forget or not even learn how they came to be, and whether that's in their family, in their country, in their lineage, like difficult stuff. We have a number of placements that are in Pisces, and on one hand, these Capricorn transits, sextiling Pisces, can in many ways produce leaders that can show up and expose stuff that's going on in the dark. So I do know that is happening. But on the other hand, it can also be where there are people who are showing up that are taking the lead or showing up and managing things because they intentionally want to dissolve, they want to remove, they want to hide, they want to confuse, they want to remove borders and, keep people much more isolated. So for today's video, we're going to talk more about how you can use Mars in Capricorn. We're going to take Mars through the trek of all the different aspects that he's going to be making. I do think it's important for everyone. If you guys think back when Mars was in Scorpio, a couple months ago, that was much more about the purge and the purification, the cleansing, the emotional stuff that was coming up, sometimes the fear, the paranoia. Capricorn is much more like, what are we going to do about it? How are we actually taking action? And this is really the only exaltation we're going to see while the North Node is in Aries. By the time we get to the beginning of 2025, as the nodes are changing signs, we're actually going to be in the midst of a Mars retrograde. So Mars at the end of 2024 will go retrograde from Leo back into Cancer. Difficult territory, especially with that North Node being in Aries. So I really encourage you to show up for this Mars transit, really put the pedal to the metal, and get some work done while we have this goat party in the sky. Now, some thoughts on this for me is, like I said, I mean, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So arguably, this is one of the more important transits while the North Node is in Aries. And when I say exaltation, basically this refers to a sign in which a planet is going to, express its energies the most efficiently. And that's important when we think about Capricorn, because Capricorn wants everything to kind of work like a well-oiled machine. So when I think of exaltation, I think of like synergy of energies. Mars is a planet that's associated with energy, action, and assertiveness, and Capricorn is associated with structure, ambition, goals. So this combination of the two is going to really show where discipline and goal-oriented nature creates a synergy that is particularly effective. So hit pause, look at your natal chart, look at where Capricorn is in your chart. What house is that in? That particular house is where you're going to be doing the most work, okay? And it still is reverberating and kind of connecting to Aries. So there is something about this where it's like, okay, there's a lot of work to do that's kind of being put on us personally to kind of make something happen. The positive is that I see lots of room for ambition and achievement because that's what Capricorn is associated with and long-term goals. With Mars and Capricorn, it's thought that, the benefit or the influence of Saturn will kind of be working with Mars's energy. And so we can find that it can translate into disciplined and strategic actions and really being able to achieve some of our most ambitious objectives. While taking a practical kind of disciplined approach forward. Mars is generally something that's go, go, go. And Capricorn is a lot more focusing on realism, right? It's an earth sign. So with Mars's exaltation, we see this energy express itself in a grounded manner, but it is going to produce results. So if we can connect these two together, and we also see some of the positive aspects it's going to be making with Saturn and also Jupiter and Uranus, we can really see some pretty significant and really prominent physical changes. Now, I also think about endurance, and I think that that's something that could correlate with Mars as well as Capricorn. Well, Mars might be the sprinter. I think of Capricorn as being the long distance runner, right? Sag too, I could see Sag being that as well. But, Mars in this sign definitely has a sense of perseverance. It's got higher endurance. And it's going to allow us to be able to have more stamina and much more resilience when it comes to overcoming obstacles that we've been experiencing. Think about recently, this last month, we've had a Mercury retrograde that's been in Capricorn. It went from Capricorn back into Sagittarius, more or less kind of suggesting that we needed to reflect on something about our goals. But in order to better do that, we have to really look at our beliefs. What do we know? Where have we been? What do we believe in? How can a little bit of faith and optimism really kind of lay the groundwork for being positive about what the future holds and inspire us to do something better, to be able to really show up and rise to the occasion? I love this for this transit. I think that there is definitely a sense of strategic action. So, connecting Mars and Capricorn together gives us the opportunity to be able to take action and execute with precision. And I think really that's what's going to help us align, best with some of our success. Now, like I said, Saturn is the dispositor. Saturn rules Capricorn. So we've got Saturn that will be receiving a sextile from Mars. So we think of action in Capricorn aligning with Saturn and Pisces, probably our vision, probably our goals, but also a nice balance between the physical and the invisible, or the practical and the impractical. So there's this nice balance of reality and also spirituality. So like the ethers are kind of working and helping harmonize with some of the action that we're taking. This can be like as simple as meditating before starting a task, or reflecting on your emotions before, reacting, taking a few minutes to kind of reflect before you really decide that you're going to, have a discussion or engage with somebody or, make some kind of move. I also think about, like I said, the fact that we are post Mercury retrograde come the new year. So by the time this ingress happens, Mercury is now direct, and Mercury and Venus will also join this stellium of placements in Capricorn, we've got Mars at the 1st degree of Capricorn and Pluto at the last degree of Capricorn. So it's almost like something new is initiating or getting started. Mars wants to be the first, wants to initiate something, and this could be some kind of long-term something. And Pluto wants to change or transform or end something. So we've got both endings and beginnings going on here. And eventually we will see Venus join the mix, and she'll come into Capricorn. So we're going to have both the North Node ruler, North Node in Aries, Mars, and the South Node ruler, South Node in Libra, Venus, will be in the same sign. And what you'll see is like there will be this role of, a stellium from Capricorn where there's, an initiation of hard work, dedication, commitment, long-term goals. And then we'll see the stellium roll into Aquarius next month, which is going to be more about fulfillment and completion and excitement and socializing and networks. And it's just going to be really, I think, the foundation. Some of the things that we initiate during January, some of the things that we're committing to, that we're starting, will potentially be the foundation for, the rest of the year. I'm using it as that. I know that, Mars and Capricorn can be a lot about endurance, physically, but also business-wise. So it's kind of like, okay, showing up, doing the work, getting busy, not just because it's the beginning of the year, but this is where Mars is. It's also, Mars is a sign that deals with athletics, and it can be about, physical development of endurance, and it can be about kind of easing your way, more than easing your way, like into fitness, and like really achieving some of your goals and desired results. And Capricorn can be about climbing. So I think of like hiking. I think of people who want to go on an upward incline. Those of you guys who are trying to get more active in your older age, or maybe you're trying to kind of fight the signs of aging. I'm using it to start like a whole new like weightlifting. Like that's what I'm going to start doing, is I'm going to start doing like weightlifting and like some toning and like definition stuff. And I'm intentionally doing it while Mars is in Capricorn, because I know it's going to be starting something new, and it's going to be making trines to Jupiter and Uranus. So it'll go hand in hand with some significant physical changes. So if you're somebody who's wanting to start a new job or start a new habit, this transit can be wonderful for that. And then finally, this is that buildup, right? Before both Mars and Pluto come into conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So we've got planets that are all hitting the tail ends of Capricorn. So it's almost like as these planets are coming to the end degrees, Mars is going to be that push. That's going to be like, okay, get going, do the work, show up, be on time, be responsible, all of these like Capricorn things. I think that even if there were no aspects to the nodes, this would happen. And one side of my brain goes, well, you're going to have all these squares to Chiron in the North Node. So if we don't do this work, we're doing ourselves a disservice. We're not showing up for ourselves. We're not becoming more self-reliant or independent, which could hurt us, Chiron. And then the other side of my brain says that the silver lining is all of these trines to Jupiter and Uranus, that if we do this work now, we're going to better kind of roll with the punches as we get into like April, May of 2024. And we see Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction. Some of you guys might say, well, this is about me changing jobs and making more money. That could be a literal representation of trines from Capricorn to Pisces. It's Capricorn to Taurus. Some of you guys are going to go, well, it's about me taking responsibility and making sure my bases are covered, for my parents and my family. And I'm, buying extra food, or I'm planting gardens, or I'm moving money around, right? That could be another manifestation of trines from Capricorn to Taurus. Collectively, that's really what that means, but it's going to be kind of going on in two different places in your chart. So when inevitably planets in Capricorn come into a square at the North and the South Node, like the new moon in Capricorn we're going to see throughout this transit, like when Mars comes to 20 degrees and it squares the nodes, it's quite literally pushing all of us into action. It's a huge dramatic change in regards to our responsibility and a way that we look at responsibility and our needs. And it's a good thing, but it's almost like that push that we're getting from the cosmos that we're like, oh, I really don't want to deal with this, but we have to do it. And I promise you, if you guys do it, you're going to be glad that you did it come the spring of 2024. All right. And obviously, like Pluto in Aquarius, like we saw what happened with that in this last year. It's definitely been quite a riot with some stuff politically. But also we've heard a lot about like AI and a lot of things going on with like tech. And Mars, you know, in traditional astrology, Mars was also seen like as the god of war, conflict, cutting, severing. It could have been also in connection or association with like illness. So we're going to see Mars come into contact with Mercury, and I think that we can hear some more kind of rumblings about issues revolving around, you know, political figures speaking on health and wellness for the masses. But I also wonder, with Mars and Pluto coming into conjunction, if this is going to be about some control or power struggles or abuse of power in regards to the masses, and where it's like, you know, there are groups that are limiting individuals. After all, Mars going through Capricorn is great and everything, but it still resonates with that North Node in Aries. So right now it's going to feel like a lot of like, you know, the individuals kind of getting hit hard by those who are in control. But by the time that we see the spring roll around and the North Node moves into, Aries, Mars rolls into Aries, we're going to see an opportunity for us to kind of hit reset. So we might feel like there is like a lot of pressure taking place in the next month that's really pushing us to kind of be like, okay, am I going to stand up? Am I going to do something? Am I going to get active? Am I going to find an outlet for this energy? Am I going to burn it off? Am I going to work? Am I going to work out? That kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's quite a bit to unpack. So let's go ahead and let's take this through the transits that I think are the most important. And obviously, like I said, Mars enters into Capricorn on January 4th, 2024, and it will be staying there until February 13th, 2024. The ending is with a bang, though, okay? So remember, Pluto will come into conjunction with Mars. So you're going to see two of those planets in conjunction, which could represent like a really big like ending and beginning. All right, so Mars enters into Capricorn here on the 4th. The first big aspect will be taking place on the 10th. And this will be interesting. So we're going to have Mars coming into a trine with Jupiter and also a sextile with Saturn. I guess technically the first aspect that Mars is going to make is a sextile to Saturn, which is wonderful. I have called this affectionately a lazy aspect, and somebody was questioning and asking why in the comments, and I'll tell you. Sextiles work in a way where there's opportunity if you do your due diligence, if you take action in some way. It doesn't matter what the sextile is, which planets. There needs to be some sense of something happening in one area to reap the benefits in the other. This was seen as like a Venus aspect. It's like social, it's friendly. I think of like two houses working side by side. If Mars is in its exaltation and it's about dedication and action and the willingness to show up and be responsible, and it's sextiling Saturn, which is its dispositor, the 10th is a pretty damn good day. Now, what's going to be interesting is this is going to be right on the cusp of a new moon in Capricorn. We're going to see a new moon come in at 20 degrees. So on this day, not only does Mars sextile Saturn in Pisces, which can be about taking kind of necessary actions to better protect or nurture or, preserve, or maybe where we are, using something about our intuition or our faith when it comes to taking action, but the moon will be here as well. Personally, because the moon's going to conjunct Mars right before it comes into the new moon and it's going to trine Jupiter, I have a feeling that January 10th, leading up to this new moon, it's going to be a lot of people being like, I have to listen to my instincts. Something is telling me I have to do this thing. And if I do that, I'm going to be better off financially or physically or in terms of resources or supplies. And during a dark moon, everybody gets kind of crabby. There is a sense of closing things out before we initiate and start something new. Planets will be coming into squares with the nodes. Like, it's going to be quite interesting. So I'd encourage everybody on the 10th to be really kind of tapping into their intuition, especially when it comes to setting intentions for this new moon in Capricorn. Now, on the 12th, we're going to see Mars in Capricorn trine Jupiter in Taurus. And this is wonderful because we see Mars, which is action, aligning with Jupiter, which is expansion. Another great day to take action, be motivated, show up, do what you need to do to be able to kind of better yourself physically, financially, in terms of resources, self-esteem, taking the necessary action to feel more comfortable or enjoy more pleasure. And, you know, because Mars has this connection with the North Node, it's like we're taking responsibility for ourselves and realizing that part of that is about doing the work physically, right? It can be about making changes in spending habits, eating habits, and maybe changing the way that we look at our responsibility to self-security, or maybe even to pleasure. You know, Jupiter is in a sign that deals with money and growth. And so, you know, Mars trine Jupiter can kind of indicate, look, if you show up, if you do the job, you're going to see results. You're going to have something that's going to physically manifest, that's going to grow. I love that that's kind of baked into the new moon. So I do feel like that new moon in general is setting the stage for a lot of people who want more abundance. They want more wealth. They want better health. They want to buy a house. You know, they want to have a new job. This is a wonderful new moon to set some of those intentions, like for real, especially now that Jupiter is direct and Jupiter's hanging around this degree that we had an eclipse in the fall of 2023. So it's the Jupiter transit that just keeps on giving. All right, so then on the 25th, this is where we get into some trouble. We have got Mars that's coming into a square with Chiron, okay? So, you know, Chiron, feeling wounded, cast out of society, separated, rejected, unwanted, right? All of those fun emotions. I feel like at 15, this is going to be about communication. This is going to be about exchange, ideas, dare I say censorship. I think Pluto in Aquarius in general is censorship. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to hear about how that is kind of infiltrating technology and a lot of stuff in regards to whether or not we have privacy. Yeah, I think with Mars square Chiron, we may feel as if we're taking action, especially with Mercury there, and saying things where we're speaking out against authority, right, Capricorn, or against political figures, or the government, or our bosses, or our parents, whatever, that we are being persecuted. Kind of freaked out. I don't know if you guys have heard recently about what's going on with like T-Mobile. I guess like there's like these new terms of service that is basically saying you can be fined if you are, you know, exchanging text messages and having conversations about things that may be like unsavory. Some are speculating that it's just more for like professional businesses, but other people are saying, wait a second, like, is this like an invasion of privacy? Like, you know, is it possible that they can be kind of reading your text messages and potentially like limiting your service or fining you for like talking about things? Kind of scary, right? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I think about, you know, Mercury, which can be phones, and Mars, which can be about, you know, being agitated and being angry. And then the squares to Chiron is like if you have enough people that are, you know, exchanging and posting things or saying things that might go against certain, you know, like government narratives, like are individuals being persecuted for this? Potentially, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not politicking. This is just the astrology. And the fact that this is squaring the nodes, I think is really reiterating and bringing this to everybody's awareness. That's like, wait a second. So now we don't have the ability to get angry. Like we already know that censorship is a thing. It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing on YouTube. It's a huge thing on so many platforms. And this is why we're seeing people who are moving to other platforms or trying to move to independent, you know, platforms on their own where they can put out their own content. Who has a say in what we can and cannot get angry about is really what I'm wondering. Where is there something kind of behind the scenes with Saturn in Pisces that is 3 signs away from Capricorn? So this can literally talk about media. This can talk about what we are seeing, what we're having access to, or even what's being like put into our feeds, like what's being put out there that we're seeing that's also meant to create more anger and kind of stir things up a little bit. I mean, I'm so sick of like election years because I feel like this is when we see a lot of the stuff that's going on that's creating a lot of intentional conflict, assuming that people are going to feed off of what they're seeing and they're going to kind of take to the streets and do what they're going to do and like argue with each other, when in reality, everybody's getting screwed. So I would be really careful about with this square, what you're arguing about, what you're fighting with, what you're going back and forth about, because really, this might be intentionally orchestrated to create some kind of like, you know, hey, look over here. Well, all of these other things are kind of being unveiled with the Sun and Pluto in conjunction. I mean, a full moon in Leo, so that in itself is generally pretty dramatic, with the ruler being conjunct Pluto and a square to Jupiter. I'm imagining that the end of January is just going to be some really damning information that's going to be coming out, and I feel like there is potentially going to be some moves to limit what individuals can actually get upset about. There's something to be said about anger and the effects that it has on the body, the effects that it has on the brain, on our nervous system. Capricorn is about skin, bone, teeth, and nails. If you're carrying that, the inflammation that you're having in the body, and getting so agitated that it almost like can be all consuming, right? Mars is a fire energy. So if we're getting so angry that, about what's going on in the world, that we're fighting each other, everybody loses. So be careful, watch your P's and Q's with some of these conjunctions and squares that are taking place on the 25th. Be mindful that things that you say can and probably will be held against you. And that's pun intended, because this is happening in Capricorn. So this is the sign that deals with uniforms, police officers, people in charge, people who can be saying things and doing things. I wonder if this is, obviously, touch wood, going to be more revolving around tensions with people who are supposed to be trying to protect citizens and keeping the peace, but we may see some kind of something with those in uniform with these conjunctions and squares. On the 27th, Mercury will conjunct Mars, and we saw this conjunction recently, okay, so this will be at 17 degrees of Capricorn, but if you guys remember, we saw a Mars-Mercury conjunction in Sagittarius. Mercury was in its fall, Mercury was retrograde, so it was having a difficult time getting the information out. It was in a square to Neptune, so it was kind of like everybody was getting agitated and blaming each other, and like lots of misunderstandings and things being taken out of context. Now with Mercury and Mars in a Saturn sign and the trine that's building to Uranus, I think it's finally like, okay, we're out of the Mercury retrograde haze. Mercury and Mars are together, so this is still very assertive. We may hear about military orders and people who are being deployed or sent places by land and by sea. Okay, with the sextiles to Pisces. And 17 is a degree that deals with Leo. So it's about leaders. It's about kings. It's about celebrities. This is people who are well known and seen out there. So you might start hearing that there's like a spark of like a lot of people who are in like the industry or people who are like well known that start speaking up about something. About what? Saturn is now direct. So you're going to hear a lot of opinions of, probably people in Hollywood and stuff that are speaking about what's going on politically out in the world and what they do or do not enjoy. And there's like also like a sense of maybe like condemning certain people for some of their beliefs or some of their views. Mercury and Mars are building into a square with the North and the South node, and this is what we would call a closing square. So it's trying to reconcile things in regards to individuals. So this is kind of like all this Capricorn, the boss telling the little people what to do, or, the parent that's kind of telling the kid how to behave. And some of us might feel like we're having issues with authority. Certainly when an Aries receives squares from Capricorn, it can create quite a ruckus because this is the epitome of like Mars square Saturn. And we've got, Mars in a Saturn sign. So there's a sense of being like, no, you're going to do what I'm telling you to do, especially with Mercury and Mars in conjunction. So when planets square the nodes, right, we generally see that we have to really integrate the theme of that particular planet. So for example, Mercury is coming into a square and Mars coming into a square. They're actually going to conjunct at 17 and 18 degrees. So 17 is more that Leo degree. 18 degrees deals with more health and habits and things revolving around the service industry or things that involve clients. It can be about health-related things. I do feel like we're going to hear more about government moves and involvement to, tell individuals, Aries, what they should or should not be doing with their health. Mercury can be mental related, or it can be things in regards to breathing. So I think we'll hear more about this RSV stuff. Mars can be more about, fevers or infections or younger people. So like the full-blown narrative to be telling people what to do with their kids' health, I think is going to be alive and well. We're also going to be hearing, I think, a lot of people in positions of power, they're going to be telling individuals, what they can and cannot do in terms of action. Okay, Mars is action. We're going to hear more about moves probably also on self-defense. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be talking points coming into the new year, and it's also an election year, about the Second Amendment and all of that stuff. So, whether it's freedom of self-defense or freedom of communication or free speech, these are all going to be things that are going to be, coming up throughout this transit. And I'm really watching the 27th and the 28th as these two planets come into the square at the north and the south node. So I guess the positive here, because there is a positive, is that the north node ruler, Mars, is conjunct Mercury, which is saying we have to talk about who's in charge. We have to talk about how do we protect our communities, or how do we be better leaders, or we do need to be more assertive to get things done. And it may mean that it gets to this boiling point, this pressure point where it's okay, enough of this. We can't do this anymore. Now we have to do this thing. And it's going to feel uncomfortable because it's going to square the north and the south nodes. So karmic events happen when planets square. Mars tends to be about action, pressure, and conflict. Mercury tends to be more about conversations. I think that we're going to have some conversations where people are going to get a little heated that need to happen, because it's a part of really waking up the individual. In the background, though, a lot of it is also the fact that we're having conjunctions to Pluto and, squares that are happening to the second house. So I think a lot of it's going to be about politics and budgeting and finances. I think it's going to be about how technology is impacting our jobs and our resources. It's going to be about also how super groups are having an influence on what we can eat, what we can spend, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm very curious to see the events that take place this particular day. 18 degrees is not the easiest degree. Usually it deals with accidents and health issues and delays and problems. It's a Virgo degree. And when this conjunction happens, we're going to see that the moon is in Virgo in opposition to Saturn. So it's going to be people looking around being yeah, we need help. We need assistance. We're not getting it. Who's in charge here? And thankfully, the moon will trine Jupiter. So we're going to see support maybe from people who have resources, who have food, who can provide stability and nourishment. And we're going to see trines to Mercury and Mars. It's almost is it going to be that farmers show up and save the world? Is it going to be that enough healthcare workers show up and speak up and they talk about what's gone on over the last couple of years? Is it going to be that through some sense of realizing and recognizing that nobody's here to save us, that we all wake up and go okay, we need leaders, and leaders emerge from this? We're going to see a lot of this happening, especially as we get closer to the solar eclipse in Aries, where some of the people who have been the most wounded are actually going to show up and start kind of leading the way forward and talking about where they recognize and realize that they've gone wrong, or where they've been hurt or been mistreated. And they're ready to kind of now be an advocate or a voice or a leader for those who have not been heard. I think about the phrase, and I'm probably going to botch it, but it's I would not be concerned with a sheep leading a group of lions. I'd be more concerned about a lion leading a group of sheep. Okay, I think I got it right. Right? So when you think about it, you can take a sheep, and God loves sheep, but they're not necessarily known for being leaders. And they could lead a bunch of lions, but if all of the lions are following the sheep, and the sheep's kind of just docile, doesn't really know what it's doing, and it's just hanging out, the lions are worthless, even though they're these insanely, potentially dangerous creatures. But if you have one lion that's leading all of the sheep, those are going to be some pretty fierce sheep. Okay? And sheep and rams, a little different, right? Rams are a little bit more spicy, but stay with me. I think that what's going to start emerging is we're going to start seeing some lions that are going to wake up the sheep and make people realize, you got to do something. It's time to be loud. It's time to really stand up and protect our youth. Aries could be youth, children, our future generations. We need to really be ready and aware that nobody is going to come and save us. And so I think throughout this process, we may see some beginning glimmers, some emergence
of some of these people that are maybe breaking ranks. Right? Mars and Capricorn very much could be breaking ranks, especially with the squares and the trines, people who are leaving positions of power and realizing and recognizing that it's being abused, it's being misled. I do think that we're going to see some dissolving or some changes, or people who are separating with certain political parties or moving away because they just can't associate themselves with groups of people who have literally been more or less like, betraying their people. Regardless of where you live, I know I have people all over the world, but as an American, knowing that, Aquarius deals with Congress, and the fact that it's just a bunch of people who are being basically bought and paid for by, these big businesses, to just go and lobby and, promote whatever is going to be best for business, but not necessarily for Americans. I'm kind of here for it. I'm ready to see what happens with some of these transits where we really start to realize that it's more a country that's being run by corporations, and it's no longer something that's for the people. And so people are going to start to kind of realize and recognize how this is impacting them and their bottom line. Perhaps until we start seeing, more of these squares between Aquarius and Pluto, Aquarius and Taurus, when people realize, well, it may mean that it limits your access to money or energy or the internet or spending or consuming, then people are going to start realizing, like, wait a second, what? Because that's very much the methods and how some of these things are going to kind of break down. More on that in future videos. But I do think that I would watch for where we feel instinctually like we need to say no, or that's enough, or no more, or this needs to happen. And like I said, because Saturn is also at a 6, we've got two different, planetary aspects here that are kind of reverberating and talking about what is and is not healthy, or what is and what is not best for us. Even Venus is at a 6 this day, and it's going to be in a trine to Jupiter. All right, so we're going to see on the 29th that Mars will trine Uranus, and Mercury is going to kind of follow there as well. And this may be about like how we are aligning ourselves with certain relationships, and how those who we align ourselves with may suddenly and dramatically kind of change something about our resources, what we have, who we have support from, right? Who we're connecting with and communicating with. So it pays to have community. I keep saying in the future, something that's going to be valuable is going to be community, people who you can, create parallel economies with, people who you can trade and share and support, friends that you can trust, networks that you can rely on. And I definitely feel like that's what's kind of emerging with this. But when Mars, planet of action and desire, aligns with Uranus, we can take sudden steps forward that may feel destined, that help dramatically change or transform something about our physical experience, our finances, or our resources. Boy, oh boy, do I feel like this is going to be about certain governments that are stepping in or aligning or having some sense of say in what's going on with banking institutions, even more than usual. And unfortunately, they're going to say, well, this is something that we have to do, or we have to implement these laws or whatever. But it's not beneficial for the individual. And so I think some of us might feel like, well, we need to play more of an active role in like questioning what's going on with these banks, or questioning what's going on with these civil servants, or, people who are supposed to be serving us as citizens, right? So people might start doing investigative journaling, very Pluto Mars, that's kind of building, or Mercury Mars, asking questions about what's going on and who's doing what and where these investments came from. Get ready. You're going to hear a lot in January and February around, who's contributing to whose, political platform, or who's sponsoring, which presidential candidate, or where did that money come from, or who bought them. You're going to hear a lot about that stuff over the next couple of weeks. All right. So then on the 31st, we're going to see Mars hit 20 degrees, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But if you guys think about that new moon that we had in Capricorn at 20, which squared the north and the south node, and 20 is a degree of transformation. It's a Scorpio degree. It's about death and rebirth. Mars is going to activate this. So if you think back to the new moon, This is like now, okay, I set those intentions. Mars says it's full steam ahead. It's time to get going. Now we need to actually take action in this area of our chart. So that's probably when you're going to see that kind of reverberate outwardly. And then we're going to see on February 7th, Mars will sextile Neptune. And it'll be with the moon too. Moon Mars, kind of getting things done, feeling emotionally driven, really passionate about something. And this is going to sextile Neptune. Okay, about our dreams, our vision, taking action to dissolve something, taking action, and a sense of like purpose and desire in connection with spirituality, faith, religious practice, something like that. But Mars working with Neptune can be great if you're working in the nonprofit, if you work in the healthcare field, if you work in design or art or music, you know, providing some sense of action and structure to better kind of support that Neptune energy. But you may hear that this is about some kind of action on the behalf of, you know, government or people who are, you know, kind of running society, protecting something about water or coastlines, conserving something about water and water resources, mobilizing around certain, you know, coastal cities or places like that. And then we're going to see on the 13th, Mars will ingress into Pluto. So, and come into conjunction with Pluto and Aquarius. So look at this. So when we see planets in the first week of February, all moving into Aquarius, okay? And we've got an Aquarius new moon that's going to square Uranus. Holy cow. And then it's going to have Pluto and Mercury there as well. Okay, so watch this. So Pluto comes into conjunction with Aquarius, with Mars and Aquarius. I keep saying that backwards. So we've got Mars, Pluto, Mercury, and the Sun, all in Aquarius, squaring Uranus. So it shifts from a Capricorn stellium, where it's more about physical stuff, initiating, responsibility, get it going. And then when we shift into Aquarius, it's like air, it's information, it's stuff that's kind of moving freely. It's going to be about the masses. And then Venus will join the bunch. And we're going to have this insane stellium in Aquarius around February 16th. Well, it certainly won't be a boring time. And that video is a video for another day. But knowing that we're inevitably going to have this conjunction, which I think Venus, Pluto, and Mars all in conjunction in itself is a lot. This tells me that there's something that's being initiated in this Mars transit. And eventually Mars and Venus will meet, so that'll be interesting. But for right now, all of these planets moving through Capricorn, including Mars, and the trines and the sextiles, give us so much oomph to really start the year off right. I'm going to show you guys now where these particular transits are taking place. You want to listen for your rising sign because that's going to tell you where in your chart Mars is moving through. For the sake of my readings, I always make these whole signs so it's easier for you guys to understand. You can use whole sign too because Mars will ingress at 0 degrees and will go through 29. If you want to listen for your Placidus, you can do that. But to make the most of my readings, listen to your rising sign or your ascendant first, then listen to your sun and your moon sign. This is going to show you where you have to take some much needed or necessary action in order to achieve some kind of abundance or your goals. Obviously, this is going to affect my Aries, Scorpio, and Capricorn risings the most because Aries and Scorpio, you guys are ruled by Mars. Capricorn, Mars is going through your sign. So let me make this whole sign so you guys can see what I'm talking about, and I'll give you guys some predictions for this transit. All right, so we're going to start first with my Aries and Aries risings. All right, guys. So for you, Mars is moving through your 10th house. Okay, so it's like all out in the open. It's reputation, it's career, it's, you know, the work that you're doing out in the world. If not, it's your role as a parent or as a caretaker. It's some responsibility that you're kind of moving through in a very public way. There's a storyline here about a Mercury retrograde here, and some of you guys have been taking time off of work. Maybe it's just kind of getting back into work and hitting it really hard in the new year. For some of you guys, it's responsibility, leading a team. It's, working a new job. Obviously, wherever Mars goes is where you are because you're ruled by Mars. But Mars also has connections to your 8th house of other people's resources and change and transformation. So something about Mars going through here tells me that you're working hard for the money. This is also about really bringing some much needed change in regards to your career. I want you guys to keep watching because there's going to be several Mercury-Mars conjunctions, which essentially means that, you're having to work with a team, focusing on your health goals, working with coworkers, talking about scheduling before Mars goes into your 11th house. And this might talk about like working with a new team or somehow your goals are going to be changing in some way. And I think it's just, obviously it's important for everybody with that North Node in Aries. But it's really important for you because all of these planets all of these transits in Capricorn are squaring your sign. So it's like putting the pressure on you to be more active, to be more assertive, to be more independent, maybe to be less reliant on other people because it's also squaring that South Node in Libra. Wow, I love that you get the 10 of coins and it's the 10th house and you're like making the money, obviously with the trines that you're having to your 2nd house. So working hard, producing long-term goals coming to fruition, opportunity for wealth and advancement, and really seeing abundance, manifest. Like really being able to look around and being like, okay, this is what I built or this is what I've been able to create. And reaping the financial rewards from that. So I could not have picked a better card for you, Aries. You guys let me know how that goes. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of work done. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You will be experiencing Mars transiting Capricorn. It's moving through your 9th house. And the 9th house is where, it's a house that's about your belief system. It's about your higher education. It's about long distance trips, publishing, philosophy, right? Things like that. Mentorship. Mars rules your 12th house of the subconscious and also the 7th house of relationships. So for you, Taurus, what you got working for you is that Mars is moving through a fellow sister Earth sign. So Mars will actually make several aspects, both a trine to either your ascendant, sun, moon, or rising, but also to Jupiter, which will provide a much needed sense of a boost of optimism. And also Uranus, which is going to promote some sense of change. And it might mean that you're working in collaboration with a partner or with a business partner or a romantic partner to learn something that's really helping you grow and evolve. Something about your belief system or like what you're capable of doing. It can be working with a therapist. It can be working with a coach or a mentor. This might also mean that you are working hard on something you're writing or wanting to publish or wanting to teach. It may also provide you with opportunities for travel. I think about how Mars is going to ingress into your 10th house, Taurus, and it's going to conjunct Pluto. And, there are some really big transformations that are coming with your career or your status or your reputation. And really, I think of like the Mars transit in the 9th house is a lot about what you believe in. It's about your faith. And how you're able to actively kind of work with that. So you might need a few check-ins with somebody who can kind of help you stay on the path. But it's to really help move forward, I think, with some of these bigger kind of career and reputation type things that are going to start manifesting here pretty soon. Let's take a look. What card does Taurus get? The 9 of coins. Okay, so far we're on a roll. This is pretty good. 9 of coins, independence, indulgence, satisfaction, being able to provide yourself with all of the things that you want and that you need and that you desire. This is a card that is about being able to almost spoil yourself. I don't like saying that, but it's giving yourself all of the things that you feel like you need and that you've had worked hard for. And really a period of indulgence. And so I wonder with Mars and Venus and Pluto going into your 10th house that this is people seeing how well you're doing, how amazing your life is becoming, how much recognition you're getting, and how people are really looking at you. And it's a moment where you're like, yeah, I created this. This is mine. I worked really hard to get here, and not feeling bad about it in the process. So maybe Mars moving through your ninth house is about kind of feeling like, yeah, you know, I've made it. And maybe you have to kind of connect with somebody, a partner or somebody else who kind of reaffirms that, you know, it's okay for you to kind of enjoy your moment right now. Good luck. We have Gemini and Gemini rising. You will be experiencing Mars's transits through the sign of Capricorn, moving through your natal 8th house. Obviously, pay attention. Number one, Mercury and Mars will come into conjunction. That's important for you. It means that you're going to get some messages of change or transformation, or where you're making some necessary cuts, or, you know, cutting something from your diet, or getting rid of a habit, or releasing something in some way. Mars rules your 6th house of habits, daily routine, pets, and health. It also has connections to your 11th house of friends, goals, and networks. It's safe to say with Mars going through the 8th house, you're taking action when it comes to other people's resources. There's been a Mercury retrograde here, so it looks like there's been a back and forth with a partner about changes with incoming financial situations, or you've been dealing with an insurance matter, or you've been dealing with an inheritance matter, or you're trying to settle something. Mercury has, you know, it rules your chart, so it's been here. So it's something that you're already familiar with. Maybe you're trying to get access, you're trying to apply for a loan or a line of credit. Maybe you're trying to pay something off. It really depends. But with Mars going through here, and it's going through a sign that inconjuncts or quincunxes your sign. It's about how you're looking at change in general, and the fact that like a change is necessary, right? All in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Saturn's in your 10th house. So I feel like this is about you being like, you know, I need to make a change in my career. I need more money. I need somebody else to give me more. I need better benefits. I need more insurance. That kind of stuff can come up. I do feel like for you, it may be also about how some of these changes in terms of your joint resources really is a result of some of your goals, and maybe also like shared money that you have with another person. And maybe changes in your health and your daily routine. And the Mercury-Mars stuff is going to be the most important for you, because that might be when you actually make some kind of shift or some kind of change with some of these things. Or maybe you're negotiating something, so you feel like you have access or more access to other people's resources. The card that I get is the Lover's card. And this is your card, Gemini. So it does talk about choices and options. I do feel like this can be a house that's about passion as well. I mean, Mars going through the 8th house, it's comfortable there. So sex and sexuality, intimacy, you know, connection to other people. Could there be some like secret work romances? Sure, that is possible. But I feel like this is about you weighing out your options and like maybe trying to figure out which direction things are going to go in. With Venus and Mars being in this house, there's no denying that you're going to have an opportunity to bring in more money or more intimacy or more closeness. But this is about needing to work hard to bring forth that transformation. And I think the Lover's card is about making choices about, do I go into that? Do we have these conversations? Do I make this investment? Do I, you know, take money out of this account, and weighing some of those options in the process? Good luck. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You will be experiencing Mars's transit through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 7th house. And for you and all of the cardinal signs, you will be feeling the pressure throughout this transit. You will be under a Mars square, technically in opposition. Aries is going to receive the square, so will Libra. So oppositions are relational, which basically means a lot of this is going to be about your relationship with other people. Okay, so Capricorn can be a boss, it could be a parent, it could be a superior. 7th house could be a client, it could be a romantic partner, it could be a business partner. It really depends. But you have a stellium of planets that have been moving through your 7th house, so relationships are kind of on your mind. Mars is now entering this house, so there's more action when it comes to your relationship with other people. Now, Mars has a connection to your 5th house of romance, creativity, children, and younger people or lovers. It also has a connection to your 10th house, which deals with work, responsibility, your public, reputation. So there's some changes going on, both with the retrograde, but also with Mercury and Mars in your 7th house, to your relationship with other people. And these planets are coming into a square with the North Node in your career. So it's like Changes in relationships or significant relationships are either helping or hindering your career development. And it's also coming into a square with your South Node in Libra transit. So this is about moving out of past relationship and home and family issues, working towards collaborating and connecting with people who can support you or who can partner with you to help further some of your goals with your career. A lot of this is like leveling up in relationships. And for some of you, it might mean that you bring in a client or a mentor or a coach or a relationship or a partnership that helps you really do that. 7th house can be about marriage and commitment. 10th house can be status. So there may be a sense of being like, okay, am I moving into a more serious time in a relationship, and how matters of the heart or children play a role in all of that. For you, Cancer, you're the only sign that will be experiencing a grand, cardinal cross. And so Godspeed for you guys, because there is this sense of being like, whoa, there is so much going on with other people, and other people are having such an influence on the direction of where my life is going. And it can be a good thing where you could meet somebody who could turn your whole life around and really inspire you to want to do more. But I'm also realizing that Pluto is leaving your 7th house. And for some of you guys, it's like, finally leaving an old storyline of like dysfunctional relationships behind as you're moving into the North Node in Aries in your 10th, where you're like, it's about my career. It's about some kind of growth in terms of like me and what I'm doing and moving away from people. So Mercury, Mars, all these planets in your 7th house, you can definitely see some people who can be very bossy, very opinionated, very pushy. And it can cause some problems in relationships. But in the back of my mind, I think that this is more about relationships that you're having with teachers, mentors, gurus, or people who are helping you kind of strategize, or they're teaching you something. And that's really where most of the benefit is actually going to be. Let's take a look. Let's see. The card that I get is the 2 of Cups. This is pretty good, guys. I don't know. I don't want to jinx it. 2 of Cups is relationship. So for some of you guys, perhaps maybe Mercury and Mars and Venus in the 7th house is like talking about commitment, meeting people, going on dates, going deeper in relationships, committing to others, other people helping you. Like, it's about other people meeting you halfway and then some. 2 of Cups can be a card that talks about unions, relationships, engagements. So if you're single and you're looking for somebody, I mean, come on, all these planets in the 7th house, somebody could show up that could really significantly alter the future of your life. But for those of you guys who are partnered already, it can just be a time where there's just a lot more focus on what's going on with your relationships. And you may feel like you've got some people that are just really kind of being self-consumed and self-focused. And you're like, okay, cool, you do what you need to do. I'm going to do what I need to do. Let's just support each other in the midst of this. And it can really help you level up in relationships. But people are going to want what you have to offer with that 2 of Cups. And the 7th house is great if you have like a client-based business or, something where you're selling something, because people are going to want what you have. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You'll be experiencing Mars and Capricorn in your natal 6th house. This is all about hard work, dedication, showing up, health, wellness, your daily routine, your relationship to coworkers or even pets. Mars rules your 4th house of home and family. It also has connections to your 9th house of faraway places, culture, and your belief system. One thing I know is that Mars really likes to be in the 6th house. It's one of the houses that it does well in. And it's really just about like crossing things off your to-do list, right? Like if you know that you have a ton of things you need to get organized at home because of Mars's connection to your 4th house, like do it. If it's easier for you to work from home now, do it. It may mean that you're having to do a little bit more maintenance and upkeep and organization than you would like to, but I think you can swing it. I also feel like the 6th house is going to be about habits. And so Mars going through the 6th house can be like, okay, I'm finally going to keep my room in order, or I'm finally going to quit smoking, or I'm going back to the gym. Like something like that could be emerging, which I feel like it is great for you personally, because the 6th house, it's a sign that in conjuncts you. So hard work, dedication, and commitment is going to give you the results that you're looking for. But I also feel like so much of this is about productivity and how it really helps you expand and continue to grow in your professional life. So like, Mars going into the 6th house might mean that you bring somebody in who's like doing, your yard work now, and it's giving you more time to do other things, or somebody who's walking the dog, or who's organizing your home, or the assistant that you hire, or maybe, there's a new schedule at work that you're working, and it's to make everything kind of flow better in terms of your long-term goals and things that you're really expanding in your professional life with those trines to planets in your 10th house. I also think about how Mars in the 6th house might be like eliminating something, and the sextile it's making to Saturn. So some of you guys might be detoxing, fasting, juicing, giving up alcohol, being more physically active. And so that has this positive effect on Saturn in the 8th house, because it's saying, okay, I'm willing to kind of cut this thing, and it may provide not only better results, but better emotions as well. And Saturn in Pisces can be also about spiritual healing, therapy, trauma therapy, and how that goes hand in hand with creating better habits, right? So a lot of it's like work and habit related. You've got this transit going through an earth house in an earth sign. So it's going to be a little bit more kind of practical and to the point, more so than other signs. The card that I get for you is the Wheel of Fortune. So it's a good time to be doing this work. There's a lot of work to do, but there's also going to be a lot of fortune that's going to come from it. And if I were you, Leo, I would be really paying attention to the dates that I gave you when planets are trining Jupiter. Jupiter is associated with the Wheel of Fortune. This is about things kind of working in your favor. I mean, I think I look at this and I go, there's a lot of work to be done, but given the current economic climate, be thankful that there's a lot of work. Because there's going to be like some real buildup as we get into the spring of this year, as Jupiter and Uranus, come into conjunction, and you might find that it's because of all of the arrangements and organization and kind of cleanup and things that you're doing now. But it looks like it's going to be very fortunate for you. Good luck, Leo. Great card. For Virgo and Virgo rising, you have got Mars going through the sign of Capricorn in your natal 5th house. This is a house that's all about creativity, self-expression, romance, dating, children, self-employment, having fun. Mars is a planet that's associated with your 8th house of intimacy, shared resources, change, transformation, and personal growth. And it's also connected to your 3rd house, which is about communication, short distance travel, siblings, all of these things. All right. Well, it's safe to say, Mars, Venus in your 5th house. Hello, this can be wonderful for romance. Mars is moving through Capricorn, which is a fellow sister earth sign. And Virgos, you will be experiencing some grand earth trines this month, which is really wonderful. It'll be from the 1st, 5th, and 9th house, which means that you're initiating things that you love and learning something in the process. Travel and relationships can go hand in hand here as well. Creativity and learning can go here as well. Now, with Mars in your 5th house, you're much more willing to take risks maybe and like share things that you're thinking or say things that you wouldn't normally say. Romance can be found in your neighborhood. It can be, a time when you're going to shows and going to bars and going to parties because the 5th house is about these things. It's where we go and we have a good time. So you might have to drive to these places. They might be in other parts of town. There can also be hanging out and having fun with siblings, doing more with hobbies. And I'm really liking that Mars is going to be trining Jupiter, which is your 7th house lord. So it might mean that, there's a opportunity to kind of meet and connect with somebody who might be from another place while you're going to like some kind of like maybe live event or you're doing something fun here. Capricorn in the 5th house definitely means that you have to kind of treat like romance as like it's a job. So I think Mars being here is like you're more willing to get out there and meet people if you're single. You're willing to go out on dates and have a good time. If you're somebody who's already partnered, these sextiles to your 7th house might mean that you're just making more of an effort when it comes to date night and doing things with one another, being more creative and more playful. And if you have children, this can be a time where you're spending a lot of time with like younger people or your kids. I think about how this is about changes of matters of the heart. And you've recently had a Mercury retrograde here, which has been kind of bringing up childhood issues and self-expression issues, and maybe a bit of a back and forth with a romantic partner or a reevaluation of a romantic partner, reassessing something about your love life or, who you're with and where you live. And now Mercury is going to kind of come back into this part of the skies. And it's important because Mercury rules your chart. So the Mercury retrograde was about kind of reassessing who you love, what you find the most pleasure in. And then here comes Mars, and it's like, okay, we're going to go after that. We're going to do these things. So it's really different for everybody. But I would say the Mercury-Mars conjunctions really make me feel like it might be a time where you're having to wear your heart on your sleeve and be more open and honest with people about what you're afraid of when it comes to relationships and vulnerability or children. It might be a time also where you're doing some journaling or some writing or sharing something creatively. It can be online or privately, but something that you're kind of connecting the mind to when it comes to expressing yourself to kind of better move through something. All right, let's see what Virgo gets for this transit. Ooh, I got two cards. I got the Moon and the Four of Cups, excuse me. So I don't often pull two, but I pulled two. I feel like this is about moving through emotions and feelings that maybe have been trapped, or like trying to find the words to where you have felt blocked. And now it's like you're going, okay, now I'm taking action. I'm getting this out of my system. The Moon can be subconscious. And so I think about how, you had this retrograde in your fourth house, which has associations with the Moon. And it can be about things that have been going on since, a longer period of time, or things that are connected to your home or your family or the past that need to be kind of cleared out. And now you're trying to figure out how to find that spark again, how to find passion again, how to have fun again, and how to get out of that Four of Cups funk where you can feel like nothing is really kind of entertaining or kind of brings you some sense of excitement anymore. And I think you can come back, honestly, with some of these transits that are going on in your fifth house. Let me know how that plays out for you guys. For Libra and Libra rising, obviously, for all the cardinal signs, pay attention because they're either you're under a Mars transit, so you're going to feel the pressure here. Libra, you have got Mars going into Capricorn in your natal fourth house of home, family, the past. And Mars has connections to your seventh house of relationships and your second house of money, resources, and possessions. So when Mars goes into the fourth house, Libra, it's really important to have something to work on. If you work from home, this energy might be a little bit easier. If you don't work from home, you just might notice that there's more action going on at home, building things, working on things, moving things around. There can be a sense also of there being a little bit more tension with home or family matters. In particular, it can be with one of your parents, or it can be with a partnership or a spouse. It can mean that somebody from the past comes back around. Recently, you've had a Mercury retrograde here. So it looks like there's been some rearrangements going on at home and with the family, or some like moves that have been happening or changes on the home front. So those have already been happening. We've already kind of seen that change taking place. And so now Mars comes into the fourth house and it's like, okay, now we need to get down to business. Mars rules money. So it might mean that you're buying things for your home, making changes in your kitchen, making shifts with your physical space, and that comes with the help of another person. So it could be, a contractor, it could be a designer, it could be an architect, it could be a partner that's coming in and saying, hey, let me build this or let me fix this. I have found having a to-do list is the best thing when Mars goes through the fourth house. I am a Libra rising. I work from home, so I deal with these energies a little bit better. But I also know that it's not just about the physical home space. It can be about your emotions. It can also be about the past. So you've had a retrograde here, and now you've got Mars and Venus here. So, even though Mars can be tricky in the fourth house, let's say you're moving furniture around, right? Or you're working through your to-do list, that can be helpful. But you're also in the fourth house at some point with Venus here as well. So it does make me feel like it's about you connecting with partnerships or with family, and there being some sense of goal. And what you're going to find, Libra, is that at some point through this transit, things that are happening either at home or with the family are very important because they're going to square South Node in your sign. So you feel like you're like, I can't really keep the peace anymore. Like I can't be the mediator, or that it's not about me, it's about a relative. And then there's going to be squares to the North Node, which means it's also going to be about how the effects taking place at home and with the family are also impacting something about future relationships. So some of you guys will move and then meet partners. Some of you guys will have changes going on with your family, and you're going to have to like go home and be with family or help them with something. And then that's going to like somehow involve your relationship to other people. But because this square is so intense in your chart, it's really important to be paying attention to what's going on at home. And I would say this can be about working together with another person to kind of manage or handle home or family related matters at this time. And obviously Mars and Venus will meet, but that's not going to be until Aquarius. So let's see what the cards have to say for you. The card that I get is Temperance. Thank God. Timing, healing, taking your time. Maybe a lot of this with Mercury there is about talking about long-term goals with home and family, not feeling like you're in a rush, having, a sense of patience for where you want to go. Obviously, if you want to move, buy a house, design a house, if you want to come in and furnish something or like whatever, like this is a good time to do it, but take your time, right? That's really what you want to do. And this is an opportunity to heal relationships with people at home and within the family as well. Good luck, Libra. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. You will be experiencing Mars's transit through your natal 3rd house in the sign of Capricorn. Important for you, Scorpio, because Mars is one of your co-rulers. It rules your 1st house of self and body. So wherever Mars goes is generally what you're doing. And we've also got Mars being connected to your 6th house of health, schedule, routine, and pets. Okay, so a couple things that I think about. First, Scorpio rising. Mars in the 3rd house, what does that mean? Going on a road trip, being on the road, going somewhere, being in action. It can mean about, your relationship with aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, having more meetings, more conversations, phone calls taking place, especially revolving around business or responsibilities. I think about how Mars is going to come into conjunction with Mercury. So I could see a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings having to talk more about endings or change or transformation, death, maybe traveling for these reasons, maybe having to talk more about insurance, car insurance, fixing cars, what it costs to fix cars and vehicles, that kind of stuff. And I think about how Mars is going to square the nodes. And for you guys, I think that this is going to be about how necessary conversations, education, or travel is kind of impacting your daily routine and your habits with the North Node in Aries. So you're like, okay, I got to go back home for something's coming up, it's creating like a bit of a bump in my schedule or a change with my routine. And as Mercury and Mars and Venus move through your 3rd house and you're kind of like on the move this month or moving or traveling, the positive is like all these trines to the 7th house. So you can move through it as long as you're communicating and talking to people about what's happening or what you need, or you're telling clients what's going on, or you're being flexible. I think about how Mars is going to go into connection with Pluto, towards the end of this transit. And really in February, it's going to be about quite a dramatic change for a lot of Scorpio and Scorpio risings when it comes to the home or family. Just reflecting, being a Scorpio myself, I've already started to see it, not as much as Scorpio risings, but I've seen a lot of Scorpio risings who are already seeing the rumblings of, oh, I have to move, or my parents going through a crisis, or my family member has transitioned. And so a lot of this is connected to this ingress that's going to happen pretty soon with Pluto. So some of you guys are already feeling it, and you're already having to deal with these things. Anyway, it's exalted here. So the positive is that I feel like as long as you're communicating and you're on the move, you can swing it. Sure, it'll create some challenges in terms of your daily routine, but communication is going to be the most helpful thing to help kind of bridge the gaps and let other people know what's changing for you and where you're kind of needing to be before you get a little bit better situated as we get closer to February. Let's take a look. The card that I got for you, Scorpio, is Judgment. Making a decision, sticking to it. Or I think this is like the manifestation of, previous conversations, decisions, actions that you've taken. Judgment is a pretty definitive card. It's kind of saying like whatever's happening now is happening for good reason. You know, if you're meant to be somebody who is having to sign a significant contract with this transit, or you're, you know, committing to something long term, or you're moving somewhere, or you're learning something, like it's kind of saying it was meant to be. It's the time for that to happen. Maybe this is about you practicing better judgment. Maybe this is about you communicating in a way where you're being more direct and assertive and committed to things, especially when it comes to your relationship to other people, right? We're going to see trines to Jupiter, so that can be literally in financial settings. It can be with spouses or partnerships. We're going to see trines to Uranus, so this can be about relationships to friends and also your home or living situation. And so many planets are at the bottom part of your chart right now, Scorpio, that it's really about what's going on with home, family, and your private life, and you got to have to kind of be present with that at the moment, okay? Good luck, guys. Let me know how it goes. I've got Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. Mars will be entering into Capricorn, going into your natal second house, which is all about money, resources, self-esteem, and spending power. Pack away those credit and debit cards because it's likely going to burn a hole in your pocket. When Mars goes through the second house, we definitely want to spend, consume, obtain, possess things. And this can be a pro or a con. On one hand, Mars's connection to your 12th house can mean self-undoing. So you could almost be like, you know, spending money late at night in your, you know, in bed when you're online shopping, or you can be obsessively collecting or consuming something, and that can be, you know, connected to self-undoing. The other way of looking at this is Mars's connection to your 5th house is that you're willing to take risks financially. You're willing to invest in things that may pay off in a big way down the road. You're willing to focus so much on, you know, what you want and that you want to obtain, that you're willing to, you know, take any chance necessary. I think of like Mars, Venus, Mercury being in the second house. It's very obvious that you're spending money, or that you're consuming something, or this is like a big financial time for you. But I think about Mars being in a square with the nodes, and that you're kind of like, okay, I either instinctually have to make this investment because I feel like down the road it's going to pay off, or, you know, I need to buy this thing or possess this thing or have this thing. It can't be for work because it's in the sign of Capricorn, so it might mean that you have to pay, you know, for something at work, or for a piece of furniture, or that, you know, you're having to invest money into a business because you're self-employed, or, you know, you're having to pay a big like tax bill that can be coming up here as well. But the second house is also about self-esteem. It's security. And so this slow kind of build with all these planets in Capricorn is really like feeling yourself, you know, feeling good, feeling solid, feeling like, you know, you have a lot to kind of pull from, because all these planets are going to be trining Jupiter and Uranus in the 6th house. So it's like that money or that chunk of change that's coming in is coming in for, you know, a job well done, or a long year of sacrifice and, you know, willingness to kind of put forward something. So you might be saying, well, you know, I got this little bit of cash, I'm going to treat myself. That can definitely come with planets in the second house as well. Just watch for self-sabotaging with money. Watch for unexpected expenses that may be coming. These unexpected expenses can be, you know, out of the blue, because that's Mars in your 12th house, and it can relate to health, trines to your 6th house. It can relate to pets. It can relate to travel. It can relate to expansions in your daily routine, or maybe you're investing more money in an office space, or maybe you're designing an office space. Second house is style as well. So I could definitely see like there being some style changes with the retrograde here. And then Venus comes through, Mars comes through, and you're like, okay, well, it's a solid investment. You know, I'm going to buy the new chairs for my office space, or I'm going to buy, you know, the new clothes. Something like that can happen. These are financial houses, especially where we're seeing the squares. So the second house is what you possess, and then the 5th house is like what you're able to obtain through taking chances or the market. I could see some Sagittariuses making investments in things that they feel like are going to pay off down the road. And it doesn't even necessarily mean it has to be stocks. It can be investing in yourself, investing in your own business, or some creative hobby that may ultimately end up providing some sense of resources down the road. The card that I get is 2 of Wands. I like that it's the second house and it's like the gateway to resources or the gateway to stability. So you're like, yeah, I want to gain more, or I want to grow more, or I want to invest more. And like you're open-minded about what the future holds, and you're assessing whether or not you're actually going to make a move. So you may have more of a say in it. You know, all of this is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in the 4th house. So I feel like it's about long-term goals revolving around home, family, property, and real estate. So some of you guys might be like really trying to generate income because you're wanting to save money, or you have future plans for where you want to live or how you want to live down the road. Good luck. We have Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You will be experiencing Mars in your sign, Venus in your sign, Pluto in your sign, Mercury in your sign. It's all about you, right? That's really what this is about. Mars obviously is exalted in Capricorn, but it does pretty damn good in the 1st house as well. So having Mars in this house makes me feel like you're very goal-oriented. You're all about where you're going, what you're doing, who you're aligning with, because Mars rules your 11th house of friends and associations and your 4th house of home and family. So you might be saying, well, I am, I'm moving in with my friend, or I'm buying my own house and I'm inviting my friends over to come and visit, or my goals revolving around home and living are changing. You are really the master of your own destiny in this transit. You know, January into February is all these planets in your 1st house square the South Node in Libra, where you're leaving old storylines with work, career, and reputation behind. You're moving more in the direction of where you want to live, how you want to live, having your own space, creating your own home, connecting with family, learning more about your lineage. It's like you have to go where the passion flows. That's really what this transit is about for you. And the more that you're following your instincts, right? Because it takes a lot to impress you. It takes a lot to convince you of something. The more that you're following your own instincts and you're going, I'm going to go after what feels good. I'm going to go after what I love. I'm going to go after what I'm most passionate about. That's where you're going to see the most success here. Now, in a physical sense, Mars in the 1st house might be more about focusing on definition and toning and body, and you might feel more active and that you need to kind of do more. You might feel like you're just kind of like, it's hard for you to sit still. But I want you to think about what you're initiating under this transit, because it's going to have a huge impact ultimately on where you are in the spring and whether or not you feel like you're dedicating enough necessary time to your private life and what you're kind of building here behind the scenes, right? Let's take a look at what the cards are for you. The card that I get is the Queen of Wands, which I like because you're an earth sign. Mars is like a feistier energy, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't really matter, but this is about nurturing that spark. This is about, like I said, going after what you feel like is the most exciting, going after what you're the most passionate about. And Mars in Capricorn is not known for that. It's about kind of being like, okay, is this worth my time or energy? But when it's in your 1st house and it's trining Jupiter and Uranus, you're like, that seems entertaining, that's exciting, like that's going to bring me more opportunities for fun or romance or love or whatever. And so I feel like the Queen of Wands is being like, yeah, I'm really playing with this energy, I'm really loving this energy, and it's giving you a sense of confidence in some of the actions that you're actually taking moving forward. Jupiter and Uranus are going to align in your 5th house, so it's creative stuff, it's romance stuff, it's gambling maybe it's taking chances with investments. For some of you guys, it's feeling very passionate with Mars and Venus in your 1st house, so it can definitely lead to some really amazing storylines revolving around relationships and children and births and creative projects as well. So I really, really love that card for you. You guys have to let me know how that manifests. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you've got Mars transiting Capricorn in your natal 12th house. Hidden, subconscious, behind the scenes, reflective. These are all things that I think about in the 12th house. Mars ruling your career and reputation, and your 3rd house of communication and travel and learning. There's a lot of doing business deals behind closed doors. There's a lot of quiet, reflective time to contemplate the future of your direction with life, or where you're going, what you have to say. Quiet time to write, reflect, and focus on some of your long-term goals. I will say that this energy being in the 12th house is almost like some things are completing right before they go into your sign where Pluto is. So there is this major change and transformation of yourself, of your relationship to yourself, and how you connect with other people. I'm very curious to see what's wrapping up, because Mars could be about saying, hey, I'm giving my resignation, I'm quitting, I'm retiring, I'm now learning another language because I want to travel more. Things like that are kind of going on, where you're having to do a lot of this stuff in the ethers or in your dreams or spiritually behind closed doors. I don't know about you, but when I have this many planets in my 12th house, I get really anxious. And I've had Mercury retrograde in my 12th house, and I've had a lot of really significant dreams. I've had Mars there, and I've had nightmares. So I can only imagine with some of the transits that you're having, but I do feel like there's a lot of kind of cutting through things in the ethers that it has nothing to do with like this realm. That's just stuff that you're flushing out and that you're kind of clearing. So with Mars going through this part of your chart, working with heat or saunas, or working in a private space, or working out in a private gym, or doing some yoga, something to have an outlet for that energy so it's not as anxious, I think is really important. And it can be like something that you're reading, or like working out in private or writing in private can give you that outlet so you can kind of better navigate some of these changes that are kind of going on for you right now. Because there's something big emerging. Pluto coming back into your sign. And Mars and Venus and all these things. And a lot of it's going to be about you being like, I am embracing new beginnings. I'm embracing change. Everybody's looking to the Aquarians to see how you guys fare. Mars in Capricorn, and then you getting the Knight of Swords. Assertive, direct, action-oriented, maybe a little bossy, right? Maybe there's something emerging where you're feeling like impatient. And I would say Mars in the 12th house, it's kind of like Mars conjunct Neptune or Mars in Pisces. It's like, hurry up, where are we going? We're not going anywhere. We have to focus on what's kind of dissolving first, or what our dreams are, what our intuition is. So there's a need to receive that energy, to interpret it, to better kind of work with that. And that might be like symbols. That might be, dreams and intuitive hits and things that you're having to kind of help better navigate where you're moving forward into the future. I do think that the Knight of Swords can be about contracts, negotiations, information. And so maybe you're like, I need to look these things over. I need to read it through, or I need to study this a little bit more. Or I need to sleep on it. I need to think about it. So you're not really rushing into anything. I would say, like, don't rush into anything quite yet, especially with Mercury and Mars coming into squares. You need time to think something over before you pull the trigger and you make a decision about something. Take your time, sleep on it. And we have Pisces and Pisces rising. You guys will be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Capricorn through your natal 11th house, which is all about friends, networks, communities, organizations, groups, and your goals. Now, this is an interesting one for you because Mars rules your second house of spending power, personal possessions, resources, and self-esteem, as well as your 9th house of beliefs and culture and travel. So it's possible, look, you got a loaded 11th house, friends, socializing, connecting with people, that's all there. Joining professional networks, that's there. If you want to take action with a group of friends, if you want to do some fitness classes with friends, if you want to socialize more, you can. You may be connecting with friends from other places who are culturally diverse. You may also be joining groups and associations that are helping further your ability to make money, be employed. You might be joining unions and groups of sorts. Because of the connection with Mars's, connection to Aries in your second house. For me, I think of like the planets going through the 11th house square the nodes, and it's all about like, what are your goals when it comes to your professional life? What do you want to achieve? How much money are you trying to make? What do you want your life to look like? And really surrounding yourself with friends in high places and people who can really encourage you to want to kind of grow into this future. It's going to have a huge impact on your money. So I feel like the fact that you're networking or connecting or collaborating with people can positively impact your ability to grow and become more self-reliant financially, especially in the spring. I think for you, it's also special because, Saturn is the dispositor of Mars. So it basically means that you only you can hold yourself back. If you're not willing to go and socialize and connect with people, then you're not going to reap the benefits of this. But if you're willing to say, you know what, I'm going to make myself go out, be independent, do these things, connect with people, make new friends, socialize, it's really going to help expand your network and make it more likely that you're going to kind of be putting yourself on the map. So something about the Mars transit is very much kind of connected with you. It can mean that people are seeking your guidance. You know, Saturn in the first house might be, you know, what you do professionally, or they may be wanting to connect with you one-on-one, and that may give you the opportunity to really expand the way that you want to expand. What else? Education, you know, group education with Mars's connection to the 9th house, traveling with groups of people, or maybe the friends that you make while traveling, especially if you travel for business. That can be happening as well, because you can have business connections with people in other places because of the connection with Mars. But at the very least, like, you need a solid group of friends or network to kind of connect with. That's really going to kind of help you grow. Get active in those areas and see that it also can kind of really help you feel accepted and connected, and like not needing to feel like you have to kind of be on your own with Saturn and Neptune being in your first house. Also, the Wheel of Fortune, great card. The time is now. I think of, like, you know, Jupiter being in your 3rd house, and the fact that it's going to come into conjunction with Uranus, and like Jupiter's your traditional ruler. So that means that you're going to be traveling more. You're going to be learning more about money, art, resources, and finances. You're going to be talking to people more. So like, why not get the show on the road now? You know, you have this beautiful sextile and then another sextile that's happening here. And it's all because of the social connections that you make. That's also allowing you to travel, learn, and kind of communicate more with other people. And so it's basically saying travel, culture, expansion, you know, fate kind of playing a role in some of the things that are changing for you is really, really positive, and likely also kind of shifting something about the way that you communicate, or the way that you think about the world in general. Okay. Good luck, Pisces. That was a good one for you as well. For the most part, that was pretty positive for the 12 signs. I'm hoping that you guys make the most of this transit. Please, please, please. And let me know, like, where is this transiting in your chart? Do you have Mars in Capricorn or Mars in the 10th house? What are you looking to do with this transit, especially with the trines to Jupiter? It can be some really amazing opportunities for election charts for people to be launching businesses, which could be very abundant going into the future. So leave me your comments below. Don't forget to click the bell button and subscribe. Consider joining my memberships and supporting me as a full-time content creator. You guys can also usually catch me here on Fridays. I do live readings. I will be back in this next week. I'm not going to be here this week, but I'll be back next week. What else? And if you guys want to book a personal reading with me, you can check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. There's lots of links in my description. You guys can check out my availability. I am booking in March of 2024 if you would like to get a personal reading with me. I also do reports. I have all kinds of astrology calendars, and I teach astrology. So head over to my website, sign up for the newsletter, and check out what we've got on the website there. And I will see all of you guys back here very soon, and I'm excited to see what we're building over the next month. Until next time, take care.